Good morning. My name is Victoria Cosgrove, and I am a clinical associate professor and director of the Prevention and Intervention Lab in the Division of Child Psychiatry. We focus on studying stress and its involvement in the emergence of mood symptoms in adolescents and teens. And we also develop clinical interventions that may help minimize negative responses to stress. I'm also very fortunate to direct the family clinic in our division, which trains psychology and psychiatry trainees in the complexities of family therapy. This webinar is the third in a three-part series on positive parenting, hosted by our department. Our continuing medical education colleagues have worked hard within a very short frame of time to make sure webinars such as these are eligible for CME credit. Instructions on how to receive the CME credit are listed on this slide. During these very challenging times with the current COVID-19 pandemic, focusing on the health and well-being of our families is critical. As the boundaries between work, school, and family life are more blurred than ever, parents are having to do it all while concurrently managing their own stress and worry. Today, we are very fortunate to hear from Kyle Cassidy and Dr. Mari Kurahashi, both experts in child and family-based interventions within the Department of Psychiatry. Kyle Cassidy is a licensed clinical social worker who joined us in the Division of Child Psychiatry last fall from the University of California in Los Angeles. She specializes in the evaluation and treatment of children and adolescents with neurodevelopmental challenges and mental health disorders. She also has advanced training in supporting parents through parent management training. She currently supports our general and anxiety clinics. Dr. Mari Kurahashi is a child and adolescent psychiatrist and co-director of Stanford's Child and Adolescent Psychiatry General Clinic. She has a special interest in parenting interventions and provides support through parent-child interaction therapy, mindful parenting, parent management training, and SPACE, or supportive parenting for anxious childhood emotions. She is also humbled and inspired by being a parent to two young children, ages 4 and 5. This webinar aims to support parents in Stanford's School of Medicine community by providing practical strategies to adapt to change, maintain daily structure, and promote healthy living during increased times of stress and beyond. We will spend the first 40 minutes of this webinar on presentations, allowing ample time for questions before we break at noon. We encourage your questions and are truly eager to get a pulse on the types of issues that you are facing during these unprecedented times locally and across the globe. Please submit your questions as you think of them via the chat function located at the bottom of the screen. As moderator, I will be actively reading and consolidating questions in preparation for a rich discussion following the presentation. I'm going to now turn the virtual stage over to Kyle, who has joined via audio.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cosgrove, and welcome everybody. So today, Dr. Kurahashi and I are going to discuss the interconnectedness of adapting to change and maintaining structure to keep our families healthy. I want to first start by acknowledging the gravity of the impact that COVID-19 is having on everyone individually and as a family. And I also want to thank those who are serving on the front line and making daily sacrifices to keep us and our families safe during this uncertain time. We so appreciate you. Although to many of us, the past several months feels like a bit of a blur, the reality is that if you live in the Bay Area, you have been sheltering in place for nearly 2 months. Next slide, please. That means for over 2 months, you have had to make dramatic changes to your lifestyle, including staying at home for all non-essential activities, wearing medical masks when grocery shopping, keeping 6 feet of social distance from others, and flexing to adapt to school closures and/or potentially working virtually. This is a lot, and if you are a parent, you hold additional responsibilities in balancing the management of your new home living environment with continued professional expectations. Next slide, please. So let's take a minute to think about what hats you have added to your wardrobe to adapt to our current climate? Have you become a teacher, a playmate, a computer wizard? Are you feeling like everyone's rock, chef, and sounding board? I encourage you to think this through and realize the innate resilience you already possess, in addition to the drive you show attending a webinar to further improve your family's functioning. Next slide, please. In an effort to better support you in managing all of this, I'll be walking you through how you can develop a family coping plan that integrates core strategies developed by the National Center for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. The strategies outlined increase your sense of safety, increase calming, connect with each other, build personal and family confidence, and foster hope are all core components in strengthening your family's ability to cope during times of high stress. As you face insecurity and new challenges, these concepts will anchor you and your family in adapting to change while maintaining necessary structure. Next slide, please. In our first webinar of this series, Positive Parenting During Shelter in Place, Dr. Rasher and Dr. Fedigan reminded us of the importance of going back to the fundamentals when faced with heightened anxiety and stress. Essential fundamental strategies in keeping yourself and your family healthy during this pandemic include washing your hands, maintaining 6 feet of social distance, and limiting activities out of your home to only those that are essential. When you arm yourself and your children with these strategies, you are empowering your family to be better protected against potential threats. Furthermore, you have control over your reactions during this time. As mentioned across both Positive Parenting webinars, this is a critical time for you to model appropriate coping behaviors to your children. Ensure that you are taking care of yourself so that you have the capacity to effectively deal with daily challenges as they arise. Next slide, please. Increase your sense of calm. Now, doesn't this sound ideal? Just increase your calm and you'll be in a Zen state and everything will be fine, right? Well, not exactly, but there are adjustments that you can make to your current lifestyle that will positively impact the level of stress you and your family are experiencing. One of them being reducing anxiety-provoking activity. You are aware that updates related to COVID-19 are available to us at all times of the day through practically every mode of communication. Much like we should be limiting our children's exposure to this constant coverage, give yourself as a parent breaks to focus on other things and gain some mental distance. Co-occurring professional and familial expectations results in an increased need to multitask throughout our day. Although some multitasking is unavoidable, at excess, it is exhausting and it will easily burn you out. Incorporate moments when you can just read to your kids, talk with a friend, and walk with your partner. Later in this presentation, Dr. Kurahashi will go into more detail regarding how you can bring mindfulness into your positive parenting approaches. Promote positive communication within your family. Acknowledge the impact that stress is having on your family and how this may contribute to increased conflict in the home. I can't emphasize enough the importance of increasing communication right now and letting children talk through their emotions. Dr. Starachi and Dr. Cosgrove beautifully broke down valuable communication skills to help reduce tension at home. During the last webinar, Communicating as a Family in a Time of Crisis, a few of these skills included expressing positive feelings to set the stage for calm communications and lowering conflict. An example of this includes, I'm proud of you for staying focused on your math work, and using I statements to express negative feelings. I feel sad, hurt, disappointed, let down when you play video games instead of doing your schoolwork, or call your sibling a name, or hit them. Also, active listening to prevent disagreements from escalating. This can be shown by paying attention, showing that you are listening by using eye contact and nodding, as well as asking clarifying questions and summarizing what you heard. And then validation to de-escalate and connect when your child is distressed. An example she provided for this was, it makes sense that you're disappointed about graduation being canceled. Remember, you don't have to agree with your child when you validate, but it's important to communicate to them that their emotions make sense and you're taking them seriously. The last strategy I've listed, but certainly not of least importance, is to keep a daily routine in place. During times of increased angst, structure is critical, if not vital, in coping effectively. So what do I mean by structure? Ensure that there is predictability within the day. Maintain consistency in the times that you go to bed and wake up for the day. Have meal times, and regularly carve out time to get fresh air and socially connect with others through safe means. Next slide, please. In this slide, I illustrate a structured but flexible family schedule that can be adapted to best meet your family's needs. Important features of this visual schedule include consistent sleep-wake times and meal times. There's also attention given to getting ready for the day and following a regular nighttime routine. As you can see, I highlighted larger chunks of time that you can delegate for the family to focus on work and or school in the morning and in the afternoon. And then, as mentioned, incorporate time that you can interact and connect with others and move your body to aid in your well-being and general balance of the day. Next slide, please. So let's expand a little more on the importance of connecting with each other. Although we may feel like we are seeing a lot more of our family members than we ever did before, it is important to not only be under the same roof, but to dedicate time when there can be quality social connection. Use meal times to encourage conversation, afternoon breaks to exercise together, or after dinner leisure time to bring out the old board game. Allow this time to be one in which you bring your family closer by creating new rituals, such as helping out those in need, washing the car, or creating a home project that you can reference back to good old 2020. For your family and the other loved ones that live outside of the home, there are a variety of ways that we can stay in touch that allow us to still maintain distance. As most of us are quite familiar with the first three, phone, video, text, I want to point out the last one, as it could just make someone's day: a letter. Next slide, please. This helpful problem-solving model, referred to as STEP, was the last communication skill presented by Dr. Strachey and illustrates how to effectively tackle challenges together while also promoting family cohesion. By addressing problems through this framework, you will strengthen you and your family's ability to be resilient during this time. Main points of the STEPS model include breaking down large problems into smaller chunks, brainstorming as a family viable options to reach desired solutions, negotiating what solutions will work best for everyone, taking small steps towards your desired outcomes, documenting progress and celebrating movement towards your goal. And then, of course, make changes as needed by recalibrating your approach. Another helpful tool is developing what we call in the clinical world a needs assessment. Ask yourself, what are my needs? What are my family's needs? What are my work responsibilities? And then build out your priorities from there. Next slide, please. It is very normal to feel discouraged right now. For some, they may feel this way all day. For others, it may come in waves. Focusing on positive ways in which your family is coping and expressing gratitude are ways that you can foster hope. I encourage you to develop daily practices that incorporate these two concepts. Examples of this include creating a brag book that you can keep by your child's bed, highlighting their good behaviors and accomplishments. Review this with them nightly as an opportunity to enhance your positive interactions. Prompt conversation related to encouraging things that you see others doing, and have family members share their favorite thing about each other or the day. Develop daily practices such as gratitude journaling or placing a pebble in a jar every time you want to mark a good thing that has happened. Next slide, please. The strategies that you choose to implement from this diagram or modify to best meet your family's needs will positively impact your ability to maintain connection as a family while adequately responding to the seriousness of this pandemic. Although these practices will support you in maintaining hope, safety, and a sense of calm during this difficult time, we hope that you can also develop them into daily habits that will keep your family strong through other challenges in the future. Please remember that you do not have to be perfect. Do your best, be kind to yourself, and remember that anything you do to role model these types of strategies will better arm your children in coping. I will now allow us to transition over to Dr. Kurahashi, who will be speaking in more detail about how to keep your family healthy during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. I'd also like to begin with acknowledging all that parents and caretakers are doing these days. And thank you for taking the time to join us with everything you're all juggling. And with COVID-19 and sheltering in place, we're all managing so much, as Kyle mentioned, and are all wearing so many hats. Unfortunately, in addition to these positive parenting webinars, there's a lot of helpful information out there on parenting, self-care, and so on. And at the same time, when we're triggered and our children will find our trigger spots, we can feel like we're trying to tread water while being flipped and spun around by colossal waves. And the ocean can be a helpful metaphor to represent the mind. On the surface, it tends to be choppy, with waves similar to our thoughts and emotions taking us in all different directions, subject to the whims and rough weather of the outer environment. Next slide. And at the same time, beneath the waves, there's a calmness in the sea deep below. Tapping into that calm place beneath the whirlwind of daily life events is an important benefit of mindfulness practice. So like Kyle mentioned, I'll be speaking about mindful parenting as an important way to keep families healthy, as mindful parenting allows us to tap into our calm center from which we can be more responsive to our families rather than reactive, and allows us to step out of autopilot mode and be more fully present for both the challenging and wonderful moments with our children. Next slide, please. So mindfulness has been quite the buzzword for a long time now. And what does it mean? Mindfulness isn't about emptying your mind of thoughts or achieving some particularly blissful state. It's about awareness of our current state and how we deal with it. Are we aware of what our current experience is? And are we meeting that experience with openness and kindness? With mindfulness, we can bring conscious attention to what's happening right now instead of getting hijacked by our emotions, so we can then have choice and wisdom in how we respond to the current experience. Next slide, please. So when our brain perceives a threat, our amygdala, which is the alarm system in our brain, rings the alarm and tells our body to react without thinking, and to just have an automatic stress reaction of fight, flight, freeze to protect us. This helped us humans fight, flee from, or freeze and hide from predators immediately without wasting precious time on thinking about what's happening. And this allowed us to evolve to become the top of the food chain. The problem now is that we're at the top of the food chain, so we no longer need a stress response to be so sensitive, and yet it still is. And then our sensitive stress receptors can't always distinguish between real and false dangers. In everyday parenting, our stress response gets triggered by non-life-threatening situations with our kids all the time. For example, if your kid spills milk across the table you're using to try to juggle a work Zoom meeting and your kid's school Zoom conference, this can trigger a stress response as if we're being attacked by a tiger. So depending on childhood experiences, your temperament, decreased bandwidth with COVID-19, your stress reaction may be triggered more easily. And when our stress reaction is triggered, we all have difficulty thinking clearly. Next slide, please. So Dan Siegel's brain hand puppet can help illustrate this, where we use our hand as a model of our brain. This can be helpful because if we see and understand what the brain does, we can start to change what the brain does, including reactions to stressful parenting and family situations. So please forgive me if there are any neuroscientists watching this. But if you put your thumb in the middle of your palm and then curl your fingers over the top, Dan Siegel, who's a neuroscientist and psychiatrist who came up with this, likes to joke that you'll have a handy model of the brain. So imagining that the face is in front of the knuckles and the back of the hand is the back of your head, and that the wrist represents the spinal cord rising from the backbone, and the bottom of your hand is the base of your skull upon which the brain sits. So then the palm would be the inner brainstem, and this brainstem is known as the reptilian brain because it's the most primitive part of the brain and has similarities with the brains that reptiles have. So this area is responsible for basic life functions like keeping you awake or asleep, making sure you're breathing and your heart is beating. And if you place your thumb back down, you'll see the approximate location of the limbic area. And this limbic area is deep within the brain and is known as the old mammalian brain because it evolved when small mammals first appeared about 200 million years ago. And this limbic part of the brain helps mammals experience emotions and store memories. And it's also where our safety radar, the amygdala, is located, which triggers the automatic stress response. Then if you curl your fingers back over the top of your thumb, that represents the cortex. The cortex is known as the new mammalian brain or neocortex because this developed with primates and expanded even more with the first humans, and this allowed for more sophisticated thinking and planning. The fingernails represents the brain area right behind your forehead, which is where the prefrontal cortex is located, and this helps with thinking of different perspectives, controlling our impulses, making choices, calming ourselves, and so on. Your brain often works in harmony where all the parts are connected and communicating. But when stressed, the reptilian and old mammalian brains can take over, and the new mammalian brain, including the prefrontal cortex, can disconnect, where we flip our lid, and the fight, flight, freeze stress response from the emotional brain takes over without the prefrontal cortex acting as a brake on our emotional reactivity. So when you've just lost it with your kid or your partner, and it feels like an internal tsunami just erupted and you feel out of control, maybe you're stuttering and all the ways you strive to be like in parenting is thrown out the window, that's flipping the lid. And the more we practice mindfulness, the more activity there will be in our prefrontal cortex or our thinking brain. So the brain can work in harmony and we can be less reactive and respond with more choice and wisdom, even in stressful parenting and partner situations. Our reactions can be scary to our kids, and we want to model how to deal with stress. If we choose to be more mindful by pausing before reacting, we can teach our kids that they too can pause and choose to respond to stress and not just react. Next slide, please. So what does mindful parenting mean? Well, Duncan and colleagues operationalized the components of mindful parenting, and they identified 5 factors: listening with full attention, non-judgmental acceptance of self and child, emotional awareness of self and child, self-regulation in the parenting relationship, and compassion for self and child. And all that sounds really wonderful. And then there's the real life. Next slide, please. And there might be more of this going on at home, especially with the extended period of sheltering in place. Next slide, please. So given the time constraints, I'll be focusing on how mindful parenting can help with decreasing parental reactivity and increasing self-regulation, because I've heard a lot of parents talking about this being more challenging with shelter in place, without having breaks from our kids and partners, juggling work, childcare, homeschool, cooking, cleaning, our kids having their own challenges with the situation. At the same time, mindful parenting is not about being a perfect parent. Parenting is certainly not easy, and the reality is that parenting consists of amazing, heart-bursting with love moments, superpower patience and understanding, as well as really challenging ones filled with regret. The philosophy that mindfulness stems from is an understanding that things are always changing, and with that, I find comfort in the fact that even if I've messed up big time, in this moment, right now, I can always take a breath and begin again. And with mindful parenting, you pay attention to what you're feeling. It's not that you won't get angry or upset. Of course you will. But acting on this mindlessly is what can compromise our parenting. And because we're talking about mindfulness and mindful parenting, which is experiential rather than a cognitive experience, let's try an experiential exercise. So we'll start with sitting comfortably in your seat, perhaps closing your eyes or lowering your gaze if that feels comfortable to you. And perhaps taking a moment to acknowledge all the effort and steps you took to be here right now. For making the decision to sign up for this webinar, rearranging your schedule to fit this in, opening up your email to find the link, and taking a moment to acknowledge all that you do. And then shifting our attention to feeling the contact of your feet on the ground, feeling the contact of your body with your seat, noticing your breath, noticing any body sensations or thoughts or emotions. Landing in this moment, right here, right now. And then if you feel comfortable with this, bringing to mind a difficult or stressful parenting or family interaction which you feel did not go well. I'll give you a moment to come up with one. For me to this, it's not that difficult. And imagining the situation as vividly as possible, as if it's happening right now. Who is there? What are they saying or doing? What are you saying or doing? How do you know you're feeling stress in this situation? exploring where you feel the stress physically in your body. Many of us have particular areas of our body where we habitually experience stress, and the physical sensation is then connected to the fight, flight, freeze, stress reaction. What emotions do you notice? What thoughts? Perhaps saying to yourself, whatever it is I'm feeling, it's okay. Let me feel it. Noticing whatever comes up. Are there critical or judgmental thoughts? Feelings of sadness, anger, guilt? Tension in the body? Urges to act in certain ways? Allowing whatever the experience is to be there. Noticing urges to push them away or to get swept away by them. And then imagining how you would respond to your closest friend in the same situation. What might you say to them? Seeing if you could bring a similar attitude of kindness and compassion to yourself, perhaps reminding yourself that all parents struggle and have regrets. Reminding yourself that being reactive and having regrets is part of being human and connects us with all other parents who struggle to do their best and make mistakes along the way. And then bringing your attention to the breath. Perhaps taking a few deep breaths to help ground ourselves. And then allowing the natural rhythm of the breath to flow in and out. And in a moment, I'll be ringing the bell. And when you're ready, returning to the room. So thank you for participating in that exercise. And if you can send into the chat what you noticed, that would be great, especially body sensations. So thank you so much. So next slide, please. And there is a lot of commonality in what people observed. Common reactions in this experience can be for body sensations, tension in the neck and shoulders, clenched fists, heat, jaw tightness, your heart racing. Next slide, please. And we start with focusing on the body sensations because they help us connect immediately with what we're experiencing in the here and now. And at the same time are usually more neutral than our thoughts and feelings. So paying attention to our body sensations can help ground us in the here and now without the spiraling of automatic negative thoughts and emotions and the temptation to then act on them. Thoughts and feelings are also encouraged to be observed and embraced as well, because mindfulness is not about pushing things away, but it's also not about spiraling and feeding into reactivity. So going back to the stress, fight, flight, freeze response that can often be triggered with parenting and interacting with your family, the big question of how can we avoid reacting with our automatic survival patterns in stressful situations with our kids that aren't actually dangerous? Well, by recognizing the physical signs of stress in our body, we can learn to identify these moments of stress earlier on. And by taking a breath and becoming aware of our body, we can slow down and step out of our automatic survival response. So instead of flipping our lid, we can then use the longer route in the brain that involves our prefrontal cortex, which is important for impulse control, seeing things from multiple perspectives, our ability to regulate our emotions. And when we can step out of our automatic reactions and pause, we're able to have more choice in how we respond. So with mindfulness practice, we learn to pay attention to our breath and our body, which helps us recognize our body's signals of stress. This awareness helps us become less reactive in our parenting. Mindfulness practice in long duration can help with building up this skill and the mindfulness muscle. But we can also meditate in 3-minute intervals or even 3 seconds, which can be enough to interrupt reactive parenting. Next slide, please. So hopefully you can continue this practice of paying attention to your physical reactions during parenting and sheltering in place, and that this can be helpful with interrupting reactivity in the home. Here are also some more resources for mindfulness in general. We'll also be having an online mindful parenting class this summer in July. So if you're interested in exploring this further, please contact Beth at the email address on the slide. And then I'll turn it back to Kyle to go over more resources.
Thank you, Dr. Kurahashi. We have listed here some helpful resources. Oh, if you can go to the next slide. We have here some helpful resources that we'd like to provide to you from our department. If you'd like to access previous webinars to this series of positive parenting during shelter in place, you can find them at that first link. And then the Pediatric and Traumatic Stress Clinic has also developed a really helpful and comprehensive guide, which includes a handout about talking to kids about COVID-19, as well as strategies to manage stress. And then I also wanted to make sure I mention that in an effort to further support the well-being of our colleagues who are affected by additional stressors in the face of COVID-19, we are providing a stress check-in opportunity through Connect and Recharge groups. These groups are free, confidential, and are open to members of the Stanford medicine community, including faculty, trainees, and staff at the School of Medicine, Stanford Healthcare, and Stanford Children's Health, LPCH. In addition, there are some groups with special topics, including positive parenting. Myself, along with other faculty involved in this webinar series, are running the parenting groups, and we do hope that you'll be able to join us if you'd like some additional support around parenting during this challenging time. You can also see we posted various links on the bottom of this slide to further guide you in obtaining quality information from credible resources that we recommend. I will now turn the mic back to Dr. Cosgrove, who will start the question and answer portion of our program.
Great, beautiful presentation, Dr. Kurahashi and Kyle. I am happy and excited to now be able to lead us through some of the questions that have rolled in, and pull on the expertise of both of you. I think maybe a good place to start would be some questions around kids feeling socially connected with their friends. So a question from an attendee is, how can I help my younger child still feel socially connected with their friends during this time of sheltering in place and social isolation?
Dr. Cosgrove, that's a really great question, and totally relevant to the reality of our children's lives right now. They too have lost the opportunity to connect with teachers, peers, other support staff. And although not 100% the same, advancement in technology has given us a number of options to still connect with others while still remaining safe. And there are options even for young kids. So one of my favorites is arranging virtual play dates. And you can arrange this much like physical gatherings in the past. Connect with parents and arrange a time when the child can Zoom or FaceTime with a friend, and leave it open to either just have them talk to one another, share a meal, or do an activity together. I do say that lower your expectations for this and allow it to just be exploratory and fun.
So a really helpful answer. Yeah, it's something that comes up very regularly across the developmental spectrum. Another, I think, the corollary question that I think is important is one that just came in, actually, and I encourage people to keep submitting as we still have 13 minutes, I believe. With the possibility that school may not even open in the fall, how do we cope with the stress that we will have to deal with both working full-time and homeschooling at the same time, possibly working shifts for another 6 months, if not longer? Not sure which of you might want to answer that question.
I can start. So I think an important piece in that is some of the principles that I went through. So maintaining hope, that you are a strong family, that you are a resilient family, and that you have the skills in place to continue to persevere, whether it's 1 more month of doing this or 6 more months. And revisiting some of the concepts that I went over in terms of setting up appropriate structure for your family, but also allowing there to be some flexibility and some recalibration. And as time passes, you will figure out what works best for your family. So does your family respond better to a tighter routine that really breaks down each hour of the day, or is it better to sustain something with more flexibility where you have larger chunks a day that allow for more flexibility? So keep those concepts in mind as you arrange for future plans. Dr. Kurahashi, did you want to add anything?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for such an important question. I think in addition to what Kyle said, I also think it's so important to just acknowledge also the difficulty of all of this for everyone, and the reality of the real hardship that all of this is, the impact of this, while there's a lot to be grateful for as well. And I think sometimes having space to be with the difficulty is also important. Sometimes giving space to that, and then also, going into problem solving mode. Both are important. And I think the parts of self-care that we all talk about, I think the mindfulness practice can be a helpful part of that. Sometimes it doesn't resolve everything right away, but it can be helpful in the process of adjusting to such big changes that we're all facing.
Yes, huge changes. Great answers. Another question from a participant is around this issue of what can be done to help a child who has lost interest in attending to his schoolwork and is distracted very easily. What do you all think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think probably a lot of us are dealing with this as the novelty of homeschooling has worn off, and parents' bandwidth is also, very tenuous. So some things I think that are helpful to keep in mind is, shorter intervals, lots of breaks for physical activity, trying to start the day off with some movement. And also, being realistic about our expectations, that we may not accomplish everything that the schools send us. And they will be okay, and you're not going to be alone in that. We're all dealing with the situation and trying our best. And at the same time, you're not necessarily teachers. It's also different teaching your child versus other students. The environment is so different. And keeping an eye on the calendar. It's May 14th. The official school year is coming to an end, and also helping to keep that in mind that summer break is coming. Even if we have 6 more months of this, we will have a break coming soon from at least the homeschooling component.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also, as a mother of young children, remind myself that the teachers are sort of doing the best they can, but making this up as they go along as well. And so their calibration of how much work is feasible might not be in line with what is in any given family situation actually feasible. And hopefully the summer will give them a break also to get a sense of as frontline workers. Another question that I think is a really important one, and comes up when I work with clients, is every time I try to meditate, I can't do it. My mind just goes all over the place. It's really frustrating, and I lose motivation to do it again. What am I doing wrong?
That's a great question. And probably if you ask anyone who's tried meditating, they will have a similar response at some point. And so I just want to emphasize that meditation and mindfulness is not about kind of reaching some, again, this blissful zened out state. It's just being in touch with whatever your current situation is. And if that situation is your mind is wandering a lot, you try to anchor your focus onto something, whether it's the breath, your body sensation, sound. There are lots of ways to try to anchor your focus on the present moment. And at the same time, our minds are wired to think. They're thought producing machines. So that's what they're going to do. So your mind doing what it's supposed to do is not anything that you're doing wrong. And when you notice your mind wandering and going all over the place, you're actually being mindful in that moment because you're aware of what's happening. And so you notice it, and you notice it in a mindful way without, trying to not be judgmental. And if you are judgmental, you notice the judgment. And then you gently come back to whatever your anchor is, whether that's your breath or sound or body or whatnot. And so sometimes we have to do it over and over and over again, or we usually do. And then over time, that mindfulness muscle does get stronger. But the part of the experience, though, is just observing whatever's happening in a accepting way.
Kyle, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's perfect. I think it definitely takes practice, and participating in a non-judgmental way is huge. Know that experts still struggle with thoughts that come in that are interfering, and so just allowing that time in your day to practice is a success in itself.
Mm-hmm. Several questions have come in about resources, and I'll choose one that it encompasses many other attendees' questions. So do the doctors, not just on this webinar, but from 2 other webinars as well, accept patient appointments? And if yes, how do we go about scheduling? If we need additional consultations regarding younger kids dealing with anxiety, where do we go?
Sure, that's a really important question. So thank you for raising that. So you're always welcome to call our child and adolescent psychiatry clinic and speak to an intake coordinator and share your concerns, and then they can kind of walk through the options. Our clinic is variable in our wait list time. And it's kind of changing day by day, but you're always welcome to reach out. We also have resource lists available as well for other options in the community as well, if you are having concerns about your child's mental health and well-being.
I'm speaking, but I'm muted, sorry. Another question that's come in, and this is around these new changes to your routine that are inevitable. A specific question: my child is resisting the structure I'm trying to put in place. How can I get them on board?
I'll take that one. Great question and very typical. So particularly during a time when your child is feeling a loss of control in other areas of his or her life, I would encourage you to allow your child to have increased choice. So this can be as simple as allowing your small child to choose what he or she wants to wear for the day, or letting your older child organize how he wants to structure his school day. But by allowing your child to contribute to the new structure of the house, they'll have increased buy-in to actively participate, and for older children, a sense of accountability when they veer off track.
Dr. Kurahashi, anything you want to add?
No, I think that those are great advice that Kyle mentioned.
So we're getting close to the end. I know there was one additional slide. I wasn't sure whether Dr. Kurahashi and Kyle wanted to end with that before I reminded everyone again of the CME requirements and how to access those.
Sure, we can end with the poem and then move on to the CME information. So I just wanted to end with this poem that I think kind of captures the benefit of mindfulness practice while also acknowledging the reality of the challenging times that we're in. Perhaps we could go to the last slide with the CME information. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for taking time out of your morning. I know everyone is busier probably than they've ever been. And this is just a reminder that this webinar is recorded and can be accessed at the following link, and is eligible for Stanford accredited CME on COVID-19. And we are very grateful for your presence. And Dr. Kurahashi and Kyle, thank you so much for your exquisite presentations.